Hello everyone, welcome to another video, and for today's race we're going back to iRacing for my first ever outing in the GT4 Falken Tyre Challenge at Brands Hatch. Now we're watching clips from qualifying which didn't go well at all. This is my first flying lap and we get our exit out of Graham Hill Bend all wrong, get it on the gas while we're still on the grass, crashing into the barrier, and that is qualifying over. So with no qualifying time posted, we're starting way further back down the grid than I would have liked for this one. We're actually starting from 14th, so it could have been worse, but 12 drivers didn't put a time in, and by virtue of our number 3 plate, we were placed in front of all of them. But it's still a little bit frustrating because, yeah, we've got that number 3 plate, and that's because this is a lower split. We should be really competitive in this field, and had we posted a qualifying time like I know that I could do, we'd have probably been starting on the front 3 rows. I think we've got the pace for a top 6 finish here, but we've got it all to do now on a crowded Brands Hatch circuit. There are 24 drivers on the grid for this one, and we are slap bang in the middle of them, so we're going to have a really busy first couple of laps here. The important thing is just to try and avoid any contact and keep ourselves safe, and that's exactly what we were doing in Druid's hairpin just then. I saw that red Porsche of Wexu Wang running in just a little bit too hot behind me in my rearview mirror, so I just moved over to the left, took that outside line in Druid's hairpin, really just to open up a gap on the inside to give Wang a bit more room in case he overshot. So we did lose the position there, but we stayed safe, and I think that's the most important thing at this stage. So we're trailing Wang now in that red Porsche. And Wang just thinking about having a look up the inside of Rosenbaum. He's going to think better of it. Oh, and a big hit up the inside there from Jonah Ritzenhaler. I wasn't expecting a move to be made up the inside of Westfield there. I thought I'd kept a pretty tight line, but Ritzenhaler found the room to squeeze that Mercedes through, and he's done the same on Hendrik Rosenbaum in the very next corner. So Ritzenhaler's made 2 positions there. He's certainly not hanging about, and it felt like a pretty big hit, but iRacing has gone easy on us. It's only given us a 0x for that contact. Speaking of contact, there's more into clearways. We've got 2 cars out into the gravel. So that's going to give us 2 positions back as we end this first lap, and those are the 2 places that we let slip on that first lap to Wang and Ritzenhaler. And there must have been another driver who didn't start the race too, because we're actually up to 13th position now. But I think the biggest miracle of that first lap was that we survived it without picking up any incident points, particularly with the contact from Ritzenhaler. But let's not count our chickens yet, because this track is still incredibly busy, and we've got Andrew Garman's Mercedes on the inside of us. We're going to have to yield that position. I didn't want to go too wide into Graham Hill Bend. But Garman took a really wide line around Druid's hairpin, managed to carry a lot of speed out of it as well, pulled alongside us, and that was a great move into Graham Hill Bend. So we've lost a position here. Garman up to 13th, we're down to 14th. And Garman actually ran into Surtees there really hot. Had we been a bit closer, we may have been able to challenge to get that position back, but we're just not quite close enough. And we've got company from yet another Mercedes behind, Jake White now. It looks like this Mercedes AMG GT4 is the car of choice for this series, but look at White. He's going to close right in through Westfield in the rearview mirror. Oh, but he's lost it. White's lost the rear and he's spun out. Okay, let's take a break from the live action to check out some of the highlights from these opening 2 laps, starting with Jonah Ritzenhaler's move up the inside through Westfield. Thankfully we got away with that, but these 2 certainly didn't get away with the contact at clearways at the end of lap 1. Well, that's Brandon Norman in the barrier there, and Jamie Creighton was the other driver involved. He managed to rejoin, but let's watch the replay again from the overhead. Watch that white Porsche. It's his move up the inside of Creighton that causes the domino effect. Creighton gets pushed out into Norman, and Norman comes off the worst. Then, at the start of lap 2, Druid's hairpin, we take the inside line to try and hold off Andrew Garman, but no joy. Garman keeps it pinned around the outside. He's got the inside into Graham Hill Bend as we see another driver spin off in the background. And with Garman ahead of us, our next challenge came from Jake White. However, White loses it into Westfield and spins on exit, giving us a little bit of breathing room. Well, unfortunately, we didn't have that breathing room for long, because by the end of lap 2, we're once again caught in the middle of a Mercedes sandwich. We've got right behind Garman, but we've also got Brian Willman coming up fast behind. He's within 0.7 of a second now as we start lap 3 into Paddock Hill Bend. Now watch the 3 cars in front, all taking different lines through that first corner. Garman in particular out really wide. We have a think about making a move up the inside into Druids. Thankfully we didn't, because Garman went for it, and there's contact with the Porsche. Hendrik Rosenbaum did really well to save that and keep it facing in the right direction, but we were able to nip up the inside on the exit of Druid, so we've gained a position there. Yeah, watch Garmin, he's in hot pursuit of that green Porsche, but he just runs it in a little bit too hot, gets too close, clips the rear. Rosenbaum does really well to save it. That rear had really stepped out there. Here's the contact. And it's quite a hefty nudge, but yeah, actually the secondary nudge probably saves Rosenbaum there because it helped him get pointed back in the right direction and keep on going. Lap 4 now, and not much has changed. We're still in 13th position. We're still sandwiched between these two Mercedes of Andrew Garmin and Brian Willman, but Willman in particular behind is starting to look menacing now. He's right on my rear spoiler. But these cars are so evenly matched, overtaking isn't going to be easy. We need a mistake, and there's half a mistake there from Garmin in front. He just misses the apex into Graham Hill Bend. That allows us to close right back in on him, but again, it's really difficult to get past. If we could get a good run out of Surtees, we may be in a challenge, but no, that wasn't good enough. And actually, Garmin's a couple of tenths quicker out of there. And by the looks of my rearview mirror, he's not the only one either. Willman got a really good run, and he might challenge here. He's not quite close enough to make a move up the inside, although we're slightly offline. We get on the gas a bit too quickly, and we have to lift to avoid running onto the grass. Now that's going to give Willman the opportunity he needs. Oh, I said less than half a lap ago that an overtake may depend on a mistake, and we've just made one there. So that's moved Willman up to 13th place. We're down to 14th as we come through the Sheen curve. Now the important thing is to try and stick with this Mercedes. We need to keep with these guys here and hopefully put ourselves in a position to fight back, but we've already lost a few tenths. Look, Willman's 0.7 of a second ahead already. But at least there's a bit of a gap growing behind us. Hendrik Rosenbaum nearly 5 seconds back, so we can concentrate on what's going on ahead. And there's a disaster for Andrew Garmin there. He's run really wide out of clearways onto the grass, so we've gained a position back. The start of lap 5, we're back up to 13th. Here's a replay of Willman's pass. He's right behind me coming down Pilgrim's Drop and then into Hawthorns. That's where I make the mistake. Just a bit too eager to get on the gas. It pushes me out a little bit wide. We have to lift to avoid clipping the grass. Thankfully, we got away without an instant point, but it did cost us a position. But then later in the lap, we gained that position back due to Andrew Garmin getting it all wrong through clearways. Look at that Mercedes twitch. It sends him onto the grass. He manages to save it, but we're through back into 13th. Halfway through lap 5 now, and the field is starting to spread out just a little bit. We've opened up nearly 2 seconds on Garmin behind, but we're struggling to keep up with Willman here. 0.6 of a second he is in front, so that's a little bit of a cushion for him, but the pack ahead of him is spreading out. William Horn in that Porsche is the driver in 11th. He's 1.5 seconds clear at the moment. And then looking further ahead still, Wang, who we were battling with on the opening lap. He's in the top 10 now, but he's 3 seconds clear. Oh, and Horn's run wide, going through Sheen curve, and there's a BMW off to the right as well. We weave through both of them, and all of a sudden we've gained 2 positions. We've jumped from 13th to 11th. Well, what happened here? This is the battle for 7th. David Tilford in the BMW is currently 7th, but he's under attack from Jonah Ritzenhaler. Ritzenhaler makes a move up the inside into the Sheen curve. I think that spooked the BMW driver by the looks of it, and it caused him to crash out. And then Horn, that was a completely separate incident. He just ran wide too. Rejoining the live action 2 laps later, halfway through lap 7, and as you can see now, the field really has spread out. We're definitely struggling to keep up with Brian Willman. That gap nearly 2 seconds, but we've got a comfortable cushion behind, 3 seconds back to Andrew Garmin in 12th. But it's a half-hour race, this one, 20 laps, and we're not even halfway through yet. We're faced with the prospect of having a very lonely second half to this race. Oh, but we've lost someone ahead, and it's Jonah Ritzenhaler who's crashed out. Well, Ritzenhaler was running in 8th position. We've seen him be very aggressive on the opening laps. He was clearly pushing very hard, but perhaps he's pushed just too hard there. Yeah, Ritzenhaler's crash has promoted us into the top 10, and here's a replay of what's happened. Once again, it's Sheen curve, and he just runs out a little bit wide there, clips the grass, that spins the rear out, and he hits the barrier hard. But he wasn't the only driver to retire on that lap as well. A few corners earlier, let's watch the driver in 4th position, Daniel Urier in the BMW. He runs really wide out of Westfield. He's managed to save it, but it's thrown him offline as he enters Westfield. He's going to run out wide for a second corner in succession, but there's no saving this one, and he crunches the tyre wall. 2 drivers out, and that promotes us up to 9th. Lap 8 now, and although we're in a pretty lonely 9th position, I've got renewed hope that we may be able to catch up with the two drivers ahead, Wang and Willman, because they are battling really closely together now. There's just 0.4 of a second between them, and hopefully this might slow them down, and we may get another favour because the yellow flags are out, so we've lost someone further ahead, and it's the driver who was in 5th, Enrique Esposito. He was able to rejoin in 8th place, so still in front of us, but it did help us out in that both Wang and Willman had to ease off the gas, so we've managed to close the gap in on this pack of 2, well now pack of 3 that Esposito's involved, and this was his mistake. He just tried to use too much of the track on the approach into Sterling, clipped the grass at the rear and spins out. We'll jump forward a few laps now and return to the live action on lap 11 because we've spent the last 3 laps gradually chipping away at this advantage in front. The 3 of these drivers battling really closely together, and it's allowed us to take a few tenths off them each lap, and now we're within a second. Esposito's still directly in front of us, but look at the 2 further in front of him. They're side by side into Westfield. Wang on the inside defending. He runs a little bit wide on exit, so now Willman's going to move to the inside, and he's made the pass stick. So Willman is up to 6th, Wang in 7th, Esposito in 8th, and we're right behind in 9th now, waiting to pounce if this all goes wrong. We'll brake just a little bit earlier than usual into Sheen Curve. We don't want to run too close to these guys because things are getting really tight now. You can throw a blanket over all 4 of us. Less than a second separated us. Well, a couple of laps ago I was worried about it being a lonely second half to this race, but it is heated up properly now. We actually had a much better run than Esposito there on the approach to Clearways. I thought for a moment about having a look up the inside, but we weren't quite close enough, so I think it's probably in our best interest just to stay behind at the moment. I don't fancy being in the middle of this battle. I'm quite comfortable sat watching it. Wang going to the inside at Paddock Hill. That's going to send him out wide. Will that give Esposito the opportunity to switch to the inside and try and move it to Druids? He thought about it, but he wasn't close enough either. But yeah, this is getting really tight now. Great racing here at Brands Hatch. Part of me though feels like this might just end in tears in front, so it might be worth our while to hang back. Oh, Esposito runs out really wide. He's lost it. We have to get on the brakes and avert disaster there. Luckily we did do, and we've picked up a position, but boy, that was close. Well, I said something might happen, but I was expecting a collision rather than an individual mistake. But let's see how closely we came to getting taken out here. Very close. We reacted in a nick of time there. Yeah, Esposito's mistake there was identical to the one I made in qualifying, so I've got sympathy for the Mercedes driver there, but his promoted us up to 8th, and at this point things are looking really good. We're closing in on Wang, but then all of a sudden we get the message from crew chief that we never wanted to hear. Yeah, that announcement caught me completely by surprise. We've not got enough gas left in the tank to get us to the end of this race. Devastating news and really frustrating too. I've never trusted iRacing's fuel calculator at the best of times, but before this race I added what I thought would be an extremely safe amount of fuel. iRacing told me it would last me 24 laps, but 14 laps into this race we're now being told that we're not going to make it to lap 18. I can only guess that crash I had in qualifying skewed the numbers and gave me an inaccurate estimation. But whatever the reason, there's nothing we can do about it now. We're not going to make it to the end of this race, and we're going to have to bow out of this fight for the top 6. Yeah, absolutely gutted as I made my way slowly down pit lane. I could just see my name plummeting down the order on the leaderboard as all those cars charged down the start and finish straight. And by the time we'd finished topping up on fuel, we were able to rejoin on the track down in 15th position. So disappointing. We've still got 4 or 5 laps left of this race, but there's only one driver who's really within catching distance. That's Claudio Barroso in 14th. He's 5 seconds ahead. Well, we did end up getting gifted 1 position on the very next lap through an astonishing incident. Now we're watching Greg Stalaker in 2nd position, who's going to get punted out by a back marker. Oh no, that was an absolute disaster. Riding on board with Stalaker now, you can see the back marker ahead. Pavel Mazerak get it all wrong in the Sheen Curve. He's off track at this point, but then he gets on the gas, comes back onto the racing line, and Stalaker's got nowhere to go. He's punted out of 2nd position, and his race is ruined. A complete disaster. Here's another angle watching Mazerak, and again, we saw it in our ACC video last week. You've got to hold on to your brakes when spinning rather than getting back on the gas, because that has ruined the podium finish for Stalaker. Jumping forward to the penultimate lap now. We're up into 14th position because of that incident with Stalaker, but we're still 3.9 seconds behind Claudio Barroso. We are closing in on him, but not enough to challenge him before the end of this race. And it still feels so frustrating that just a few laps ago we were battling for a top 6 finish, and now we're chasing 13th, and we're relying on a mistake from Barroso to even stand a chance of battling for that 13th place. Well, luckily that mistake did come at the end of the penultimate lap. Through Sheen Curve, he just clips the grass. Unlike the other drivers we've seen, he managed to avoid going nose first into the barrier, but there he is rejoining, so we've got a lap to go, and we're going to be right on Barroso's tail here, so we're going to be in a last lap showdown for this 13th position. Can we do it? Well, we're going to resist the temptation to make a lunge into clearways. We're not quite close enough for that, but what we do know from the last few laps is that we are faster than Barroso. We've lapped about 2 or 3 tenths of a second quicker, so we've got the pace. Hopefully we can make it count as we start the last lap of this race. The white flags are out into Paddock Hill Bend. He's going to run it in a little bit wider than I do. I don't think we're close enough to have a sniff up the inside into Druids. We will feign the move to see if it spooks him. It hasn't done. He closes the line off. But we're right on his tail now. 0.5 of a second is the gap, and he's going to see us in his rear view mirror, swarming all over his rear end, so that's going to put him under pressure. We're not quite close enough to consider a move into Surtees at the moment, but if we can get a better run out of the corner, there is extra speed to be had. We can get a bit of a toe. There's a long straight and a downhill section ahead. We've got a great run out of the corner, up the hill. Barroso was expecting it. He's gone for the defensive line straight away. That's going to send us out wide. This isn't going to be easy to get the pass done around the outside into Hawthorne's Bend, but we've committed to it now. All we can do is hold our nerve and hope that Barroso doesn't drift out to our line, which he doesn't do, and we've made the pass stick. We're up to 13th, but all we need to do now is just keep it tight. It's going to be hard for Barroso to pass us back through this section as long as we hit our apexes and don't leave any gaps open through the Sheen Curve. We're looking okay at the moment. Into Sterling's, there's 2 corners to go. Barroso does think about having a look up the inside, but there's no room because we've held the apex. And as we begin the charge down to clearways, the very last turn of this race, it looks like we've done enough to take that 13th position. Sadly, it's not going to be good enough for an iRating boost. We're going to lose 22 off our iRating, but we did get away without picking up 1 instant point, but only 0.15 of a boost. That doesn't really seem like a fair reward for doing a 30-minute GT4 race around Brands Hatch and not picking up 1 instant points. You'd think you'd get a little bit more benefit for your safety rating than that, but never mind. This is a replay of the pass, and we charged down the Pilgrim's Drop. We had no choice but to go to the outside, and it was always going to be tough going into Hawthorne's, holding this outside line, but we had to be brave. We were running out of time to make the pass. We were brave, and we held on to it. Credit to Barroso too for not drifting into my line and pushing me out onto the grass. So a dramatic ending to a disappointing race. Here are the classified results. And it looks like a case of what could have been. Look at Brian Willman and Wei-Su Wang. Those were the 2 drivers I was battling with before that impromptu pit stop. They've ended up finishing 4th and 5th. So yeah, top 6 was definitely on here, even with our bad qualifying performance. Really disappointing that we couldn't follow that through. And in the end, we have to settle for 13th place instead. But yeah, really gutted about that fuel miscalculation, but that is one mistake I won't be making again. And that aside, actually, there were some pretty positive points to come out of this race. We were competitive, it was a fair race, we didn't pick up any instant points, and I didn't have to make any grovelling apologies for mistakes I made, unlike my last iRacing race, which you can check out here. And as always, thank you ever so much for watching, and I'll see you again very soon on the grid for the next one. Cheers for now.